Despite growing global attention and an acknowledgement of gender diversity, young people who identify as transgender face an uphill battle for acceptance in the face of misunderstanding, misinformation and stigma, discrimination as well as bullying. All these put together, they impact on their mental health and even their lives are now at risk. Studies have shown that more than a third of transgender youth have a history of self-injuring behavior, and a third report at least one suicide attempt. To unpack this a little bit further, I'm joined now by psychiatrist and past president of the South African Society for Psychiatrists, Professor Gerard Grobler. Prof, good evening and thank you very much for your time. That stats go even further to say 1 in 10 teenage deaths in South Africa a year is as a result of suicide, and the risk of suicide is even greater amongst transgender youth who don't receive the support they need. What is the support that is required?
Tabu, thanks. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the South African Society of Psychiatrists. The support that the transgender community, and particularly transgender teens, need would be from the loved ones and the caregivers around them. And if they need professional help, also then from psychiatrists or psychologists that are skilled and knowledgeable about dealing with LGBTQI matters.
Now, many might not understand what it means to identify as transgender. I mean, is it a disorder? Is it a mental illness? They would have a whole lot of questions. How do we navigate that education?
Well, thank you very much for that question. I think that is the pertinent question, and we want to make it very clear from SASOP's side that being transgender is not a mental illness in itself, but as your previous clip showed, that people with individuals who identify as transgender may develop a whole range of mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, substance use disorders, and self-harm, partly because of the stigma that they're exposed to and partly because of the difficult circumstances that they live under. So being transgender in itself is not a mental illness, but it may be associated with a variety of mental health concerns.
Right. Help us through some of the definitions here. Gender dysphoria, what are we talking about? So
the definition of transgender means that the person's lived experience is different from the gender description that was given to them at birth. And gender dysphoria is a condition that develops out of the difficulty with living between these two roles, or trying to synchronize these two roles, in the sense that the person feels, I'm expected to live in a particular way, but that's not how I find myself. And so we did a study in South Africa where we found that that is the source of discomfort, the expectations versus lived experience that does not correspond gives rise to gender dysphoria.
Now, it's said that individuals who are suffering from gender dysphoria can benefit a lot from treatments such as gender-affirming counseling and psychotherapy. Yep. Talk to us about gender-affirming counseling and what it entails.
Right. So that is part of a whole package of gender-confirming therapies, which also can include hormonal therapies and sex-confirming surgeries. And there's a whole package that go together. So often we start with gender-confirming therapy that deals with identity formation, the person coming to terms with who they are and